Times are becoming tough for activists within the gaming industry because not only are companies no longer just randomly greenlighting projects for $100 million simply because it's got a team of all women behind it or because they think it's going to change the industry. We know that a lot of companies now are dropping those DEI programs and they're just no longer paying for activism filled slop. But we also know that gamers are more vigilant than ever. We are calling out companies' BS left, right, and center. And now another studio, Pipeworks Studio, is getting called out for their DEI approach to making money. But before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, obviously, diversity and inclusivity, when done naturally, is a great thing. I want all different types of people to be able to make video games or movies and be able to tell stories they feel passionately about. These things are amazing when they're done, not because a company wants to check off boxes on a checklist. And unfortunately, we have seen more and more of that happen over the past couple of years, which is why so many gamers are calling out companies that have web pages dedicated to their DEI initiatives and when their teams are seemingly filled to the brim with activists, people who don't actually have the talent to make it in the industry. They just have, I don't know, the sexuality or the gender or the cultural background to actually draw in DEI investment dollars. And now we have this studio, Pipeworks Studios, being raked across the coals. It says Pipeworks Studios has made it pretty straightforward and abundantly clear that their number one priority isn't making games at all. No. Instead, it has been ensuring that every aspect of their company aligns with the principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I just had done a video where an anti-capitalist game studio was shut down 2 weeks before their newest game is supposed to release, Rainbreaker. It's about fighting oppression within a kingdom and, making people your equals and destroying the elites. I mean, it's just propaganda. And these are the types of products that gamers do not want to support. Look at how terribly something like Dustborn did. For months leading up to release, hundreds of thousands of people were talking about that game, but it couldn't even muster a few thousand people actually playing it. Their job posting on LinkedIn hysterically spells it out. Pipeworks Studios recognizes the importance of creating an environment where all of our employees feel included and empowered to bring ideas to the table. We value each employee's unique experiences and perspectives and recognize that it is both the smart and the right thing to foster diversity, equity, and inclusion within our organization. Again, I want everybody to feel like they have a place within the gaming industry. Even games that are the wokest of the woke, like Dustborn, like Flintlock, The Siege of Dawn, like Concord, like Kill the Justice League. I might not like them, but I have never said these games should not exist or these developers do not have the right to make them, because even if I totally and completely disagree with them politically, they still deserve an opportunity to make the game. But while they are allowed to make the game, we are allowed to criticize it and call it out for the just propaganda that it is, and these people don't like that. They actually doubled down by stating that they actively seek to diversify their workforce and ensure that individual differences are valued. This isn't just some basic corporate fluff, but instead it's a clear declaration that hiring at Pipeworks is primarily about identity politics rather than talent or merit. The best person for the job should get the job regardless of their background or their gender or their sexuality. But unfortunately, we haven't seen that happening in the gaming industry over the past few years. We have seen studios like Rocksteady, for example, go out with the old and in with the new. The co-founders had left during KTJL's development cycle because they were not on board with the direction that game was headed in, and instead their ranks were filled with activists, with absolute lunatics, and we see how that game turned out, and it's so sad to see this happen. A studio focused on ideology first and game second. Unfortunately, this isn't something that's new. We've seen this happen many times over the past couple of years, but it is definitely unfortunate, and they are proud partners of Woke Gaming. Now, Pipework actually boasts about their involvement in several game projects, but their biggest claim to fame recently was working on none other than Concord, the as far as we know, $500 million disaster, the biggest failure in the history of the video game industry, and they happened to work on it. Pipeworks Studios worked hard alongside our partners at Firewalk Studios on their first title and their last title, Concord, a 5v5 character-driven first-person multiplayer shooter set in the Concord galaxy, and we see how that went. I mean, they even had an episode on Amazon's Secret Level, and that didn't even drive any hype to the project because we could have seen petitions after that episode aired of people going, "Oh my god, this is so crazy and this game was shut down. No, bring it back." It could have caused a resurgence for Concord and discussion about it, but well, that didn't happen. The game was marketed as a diverse character-driven shooter, but ultimately bombed because it prioritized identity politics over quality gameplay. I gave Concord a shot, just like I give most games that I talk about on this channel a shot, and it really was just bottom of the barrel content. It was a $40 game, which that right off the bat is such a weird decision for them to make because all of the competition was free to play. They only came out with multiplayer, no story mode. They only came out with a handful of the actual, heroes, and there were only 3 maps. It just seemed like a game that took a year to a year and a half to put together, and then that's not even considering the identity politics with all of the character backstories where they're all victims and you have pronouns and then you have these terrible character designs for ITZ. I mean, it truly was just a nightmare from start to finish, and it's no wonder why it didn't draw anybody in. You would think that it was Sony, right? So they would be able to market it and get a lot of people interested in it, but that clearly was not the case. And a big part of Pipeworks' business model is, of course, virtue signaling, championing remote work, not because it benefits employees, but instead because it allows them to be even more diverse. They even straight up acknowledge that their studio is based in Oregon, a predominantly white city, and seem desperate to avoid hiring locally. And their future does seem to be ideology over innovation. And hey, even the worst companies could, in theory, make the best games. They could take all of this criticism and backlash and run with it and fuel their flames and make a great game going forward, but we know that typically that doesn't happen, and I'm sure after this piece was put out, they're going to be even more furious because it's like with Sweet Baby Inc. Kim Belair has admitted that she is furious, that there's so many eyes on them, that there's so much attention being driven towards Sweet Baby Inc. because they want to be able to kind of work in the shadows and operate in the shadows. They don't want people calling them out on their BS time and time again, and well, that is what gamers are doing now. So I will be keeping my eye on Pipeworks going forward. If there are any updates, I will let you know, but it wouldn't shock me if in the next couple of days we see people working at the studio melting down over the backlash they're about to face. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.